This is The Weekly on ClickOrlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Good morning, I'm Justin Warmoth. As coronavirus infections spike, there's been a renewed push to get more people vaccinated. The Delta variant straining hospital systems, canceling events, and complicating the return to school for thousands of Central Florida students. I had a chance to sit down with Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings this week to discuss the current situation and how we can right the ship. Health experts are calling Florida the new pandemic epicenter. The state now leads the nation per capita hospitalizations. When you hear that, and you hear those stats, and you hear us being called the epicenter of the pandemic, the state of Florida, how does that make you feel?
It's really disappointing to see where we are at this point, because I believe that we could have controlled our own destiny a bit better. There are some things that we could not have projected, however. We could not have predicted that there would have been a mutated form of the virus that is running rapid. But what we could have done was we could have done a better job of getting vaccinated. So we are strongly encouraging everyone in our community who are unvaccinated to go and get vaccinated. That is something that we can control ourselves.
As we've seen cases go up, hospitalizations go up, and unfortunately deaths, are we seeing vaccination rates go up because of that?
The good news is that within the last couple of weeks, we have seen an increased rate of vaccinations within our community, and that's the good news. However, we're still not quite where we need to be. We're at probably 63%. Last week, we saw in Florida 110,000 new documented reported cases. Here within Orange County, we saw nearly 7,500 new cases in 1 week, and that was an all-time high for us.
Last week you said we were in crisis mode. Are we still in crisis mode? And what do we need to do to get out of crisis mode?
We're still in crisis mode, and I say that because we have now reached a point where our hospitals are at capacity, and that puts us in crisis mode. That means that many people are now in intensive care units. Advent Health moved to black just a few days ago, which means that they have suspended all elective surgeries at this time. Orlando Health is right behind them. So all of that puts us in an untenable position here within our community.
What are health experts telling you about the best ways to mitigate this current situation? And how has the governor's executive order played a role in basically tying your hands and not following what your health experts are telling you?
The health experts are saying that we really have to do two things. One, we should continue to wear facial coverings when we're indoors in crowded spaces. Two, increase the rate of vaccination. Those two things together, we can reduce the numbers. In terms of the governor's executive order, it has significantly inhibited the ability of local governments to be able to make some decisions that are nimble, that are flexible, based upon our own realities. Every community is different. Now, Florida, the entire state of Florida is now in the red category, meaning that we're at the high risk category for transmission. That means that we have to take some action locally. When people dial 911, they call those of us in our local communities to respond to help them. And it's no different during this pandemic, public health crisis. They're calling us. And so whenever the state government inhibits the ability of local governments to take action to protect its citizenry, that is not a good thing.
He says it shouldn't be up to the governments to control the people, and that should be done. Do you see this as a political move? What is the bottom line here? What's behind his measure?
Listen, this is all political on behalf of the governor. He's pandering to his base. In this case, he's looking past his role as the Florida governor to take care of Floridians, and he's making a mistake. He's putting people's lives at stake by not encouraging people to have gotten inoculated over time. The governor has not really led. In fact, here we are in crisis, one of many communities around the country that are at this pinnacle where we are seeing significant spikes. And you don't see the governor leading to say, here's what we're doing to work with our local governments. It is important that all levels of government work together during this public health crisis. And so sadly, I have to say, I'm going to call it like it is. I've spent the better part of my life as a public safety expert, a public servant, nearly 4 decades in law enforcement, and I've responded to numerous crises. I've had the opportunity to work with every governor for the last 40 years. And so this governor is different. He's different in that while he says that it's not the role of government, he has been very heavy-handed here in the state of Florida to diminish the ability of local governments to take care of themselves.
What's your message to people who say, hey, listen, I did my part. I'm vaccinated. Why do I have to continue to wear a mask? What would be your message to those folks?
The health experts are telling us that even if you have already been vaccinated, anywhere between 10 and 30% of those in our community who have already been vaccinated are testing positive. Why? Either because they didn't get the second shot if they were in a two-dose type of a response, or the mutated virus is now so aggressive it is also impacting those who are vaccinated. And that is something that I think is a derivative of the fact that so many people were unvaccinated. It allowed the virus to recreate itself in ways that even impacts those who are vaccinated. So we all have a responsibility to take care of each other. And there's no way for us when we're walking around to tell who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. And so we all have to kind of mask up and do those things to protect one another.
You're urging businesses to require people who come in to wear a mask, and also asking them, hey, listen, get your employees vaccinated, make that mandatory. Orange County doing the same thing, making it mandatory for Orange County employees to be vaccinated to continue to work. How's that reception been so far?
The reception by the business community has gone well. In fact, today we will be working with our Economic Recovery Task Force. These are some of the thought leaders from the business industry here, both public, private, and philanthropic, who will come together to talk about what we need to do as a community to make certain that we remain open, but do so in the safest manner possible. And so that is something that I'm looking forward to. I believe that we're at a crossroads now in our community where we have to determine the character of our community. Are we a community that really values the life, health, and welfare of one another, or are we a community that values the profits over the safety of our residents?
A lot of people will not get the vaccine, and I think you know that. And then there's a small population that might take some convincing, but at this point, with all of the evidence out there, all of the education that's been out there, what is the next step to convince someone to get the vaccine?
Okay, we have not seen the worst of this at this point.
Yeah.
We know that the precursor from when we do wastewater analysis for human beings who shed the virus into the waste system, we're testing that. So we know a couple of weeks in advance when we can expect certain variants to show up and at what rate. And so all of the experts are telling us that we have not seen the worst yet. So that means that in order to bring the numbers down quickly, we're really urging everyone to step up and do their part. And I say to those who are not yet vaccinated or who have not yet tested positive or had the opportunity to see someone die as a result of the virus, that they know sooner or later, this is like playing Russian roulette with your own life and your family. It's going to march right into your doorways. And so sadly, each week I see more and more people who are unvaccinated become believers because someone around them tests positive. Last week, we buried one of our correctional officers who unfortunately tested positive at 40 years old, and she died. One of my high school classmates here in Orlando tested positive, and after about 4 days of being hospitalized, he died.
We'll have more with Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings coming up, including his thoughts on masks in schools with the first day right around the corner. Stay with us.
This is The Weekly on ClickOrlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Welcome back. Over the last few weeks, we have seen school boards revisit mask policies as the Delta variant surges across the state, but not much can be done thanks to an executive order by Governor DeSantis allowing parents to choose whether their child wears a mask. Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings is back with us now to explain why he believes the governor's move is only political. But first, more on his requirement that all county employees be vaccinated. Back to mandating Orange County employees to get the vaccine. Will there be consequence if someone refuses?
Yes, there will be consequences if our employees who are mandated to get vaccinated don't do so. That could include a disciplinary action up to and including termination. This is a serious matter.
Yeah.
In order for us to continue responding appropriately to the needs of our citizens, we can't shut ourselves down in that process. And so it's an urgent matter for all of us to do what we can do as public servants to take care of the people here. I don't want to shut myself down in that process, so I do what I need to do to protect myself and my family during this season that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Back to school, obviously on the minds of so many parents, so many kids, especially with the Delta variant just surging. Masks will be optional. The governor made that clear. He wants parents to make the decision for their children. Is that the best practice?
It remains to be seen whether that's the best practice or not.
Do you believe masks should be mandatory then?
I think that the school districts should have the ability to make the determination based upon the experience within their respective counties. And I say that because you really don't know what you don't know sometimes, and it takes a body of knowledge to do the right thing at the right time. And you can't take that ability away from people, or you shouldn't take it away. I'm really concerned about where we are. The healthcare experts are telling me they are really concerned about the opening of school. I have 4 grandchildren who are in the Orange County Public Schools, and so it's personal to me in terms of their overall safety.
Sure.
I believe that our children deserve to be protected, and for decades now, the school districts have required students before they can enroll in the schools to be vaccinated. And but for whatever reason, with this one vaccine, there's a lot of controversy around it. But I can tell you what, if your kids don't have those other vaccinations that the school district requires, they're not going to be able to enroll in the public schools. And so somehow we got into this conundrum that we're in today, and I think that politics played a role in that.
Right. It seems like, I know that you have been saying we have to keep the politics out of the response to the pandemic. That seems impossible. I mean, someone watching this right now says, keeping politics out, how is that possible with how long this has gone on? And the majority of the time, politics has played a role. Depends on which state, depends on which county, depends on who your governor is, depends on your political views, whether or not you've been vaccinated a lot of the times. That seems impossible. Are you optimistic that that is something that we can accomplish?
I'll tell you, that is disappointing for all of America because from the very beginning, I believe the leadership fumbled the ball, and they made this about politics as opposed to making it about the people. And we can't turn the hands of the clock back now. And so we are where we are. And as a nation now that we're at this crossroads where hundreds of thousands of people have died, millions have been infected with the virus. And perhaps, just perhaps, when they go back and they look at this from a historical perspective, some of this was preventable.
Mm-hmm. Back to schools. Even if the school board wanted to make masks mandatory, even if they did that, then they risk losing funding, according to the governor's latest measure. That's a factor. I mean, that's something they have to weigh.
Yeah.
I mean, is that fair to them? Is that fair to the kids?
I don't think so. And I say that because when the school districts have this responsibility to protect the children, there's this legal term called in loco parentis. In the absence of the parent, the school district becomes the parent. And when you say the parents should be able to make a decision for themselves, you have now negated the possibility that the school districts can make decisions for the children that they are responsible for. And so that's double talk, quite frankly, that I'm hearing out of the governor and the legislature. And we'll see. The people will have to hold them accountable for their actions. And if I was a parent and my child contracted the disease and brought it home, and a family member of mine got it and became very ill, I would remember those who made the decisions that caused me to be in that position.
So what would your message be to parents then, as school's about to start?
My message to parents is really simple. It's the same that I give my sons who have to make decisions for my grandchildren. Consult with your physicians and make the best decisions that you believe are in the best interest of your children. Protect your children at all costs. That's what parents do.
The convention center, as we continue our conversation here, is such an important economic driver for Orange County. We did see recently that a convention has been canceled amid the surge. They see Florida, they see the headlines from all over, every publication saying Florida's the epicenter right now. Is there concern moving forward, and what kind of impact does that have on Orange County?
Well, we had a nurses convention that canceled, international convention, and so these are healthcare workers. They quite frankly didn't want to take the risk to come during a period where there was a spike. What we're trying to do here is make sure that our businesses can stay open, but they stay open responsibly. And so that when we come together and we put our heads together how to do that in the safest means possible, we will have better outcomes. We did lose the one convention that was estimated to have a $12 to $15 million economic impact. Many others have continued to move forward. And we're going to provide a safe experience for them at the Orange County Convention Center because of some of the technologies that we have put in place there to ensure that people are safe. And what I believe the rest of the country wants to see is they want to understand that Florida is not being dismissive, that they are taking it serious and they're doing the right thing to protect their potential patrons or guests who will be coming here. And so the theme parks and everyone have stepped up to the table and they made some adjustments, which is required. You have to make adjustments during this peak that we're seeing now, because failure to make adjustments means that you're just ignoring the science and you're ignoring the health, safety, and welfare of others. And so I'm glad to see that our Disney and our other theme parks and large businesses have heeded the recommendations that we put in place.
I'm going to end with this. I think it's important to find optimism in moments of crisis. What are you optimistic about here in the future?
What I'm optimistic about, I know that this crisis will pass. I know that if we listen to the experts and we respond accordingly, if we mask up, if we get vaccinated, this crisis will be over sooner than later. If we fail to mask up, we fail to get vaccinated, this crisis, this virus is going to be around for much longer, and sadly, more people will become critically ill and more people will die. That is preventable. That is preventable in this community. It is preventable across America. And the hope here is that I am seeing the rate of vaccinations going up. So I say thank you to our community for listening and going and get vaccinated.
And a few days after we recorded the interview, another convention was called off in Orange County, marking the second cancellation in just a week. In 2021 alone, more than 20 have been canceled. The estimated economic loss, nearly $700 million. For more information on the vaccine and where you can get a shot, just head to clickorlando.com/coronavirus. I'm Justin Wormuth. Have a great Sunday.